Hey everyone, this is Tim. I wanted today take a few moments and kind of make this off the cuff video or this recording. It, you know, over the last few years, there's been a lot of complaints about the speed of Lightwave's renderer, and I've complained enough about it myself. But I really like the look of it. I really like how the materials work and all that thing. So there's really a lot to like about it, uh, with the exception of the speed. Uh, so what I want to do is I just want to share a recent project that I received. This really isn't going to be any kind of tutorial. It's really more or less maybe more of a process that I used, and actually a lot of questions. A lot of questions about Irradiance cache, questions about GI in general, and about the AA, the sampling. So this past Monday, I got a call that our sister company needed some photography for this cabinet. It's a mudroom cabinet that they're producing. I'll show you the website right here. Uh, it's solder closets, and it's this product right here. Uh, they wanted some photography or something similar along the lines of what they've already got. These I believe are renderings, third party. Um, but they want to replace this image with something a little bit, just doesn't seem to fit in, correct? so, um, so they contacted me, and basically I had a day to turn something around, day and a half, and you know that's kind of scary in a way, especially with what we know to be Lightwave slow render engine. But anyway, I tackled it, uh, and I tackled it by uh, I over the last several months, uh, I've been experimenting with uh, rendering at double or triple the resolution that was really required. And so, in talking to them over there, uh, you know, we kind of thought it was going to, we kind of thought that 2048 by 2048 would be, just fine for, this type of thing. It, it's going to be displayed small like this. If it does go into print, it probably wouldn't be much bigger than this, maybe a little bigger. 2048 by 2048, should be acceptable. Uh, but as I was doing some tests and things, I started out at 2048, and I doubled it, and then you get a 4K, and then I was looking at the render times, and the render times were just going to be hellacious. So uh, you know, I, I I got to the point of let's go back to the old days, where in the old days we rendered super high res with no AA and uh, sampled it down, shrunk it down. It got rid of your AA, and so I did a few tests. Tests were positive, just on small sample size, limited region renders. And so I thought, okay, this is a way to go. So I ended up with uh, 2048 multiplied by 2, and then that of course gave me 4096, and then I multiplied it again by 1.5, and I came up with 6000K, 6K. So I figured, hey, we'll downsample that in half, and we'll get a 3K image, and that should do the trick. Well, lo and behold, yeah, everything worked out really well. As a matter of fact, uh, these, this is a result. And what I did is, as you can see from my camera samples here, I had one camera sample, and one camera sample, 32 rays, brute force, uh, lights. Every light, I believe I cranked those up to 32 samples. Every single light, 32 samples. Every single one of them. And, it really cleaned things up pretty good. But in the end, what I did is, of course, I rendered out, mullable buffers. I'm not a big buffer guy. I don't do a lot with buffers, but what I do use them for is, for masks. I don't do any animation, so this is, you know, a clean, bring it into Affinity Photo, use the mask to, if you need to do any kind of touch up or anything on any of the pieces. So basically what happened, I rendered out, it took 2 hours to render 6K image. And I was fine with that. That was fine. Um, and I brought that, when I was done with that 6K rendering, surprisingly, there was not that much noise. I was really surprised as to how little noise there was, with one camera sample. But I think with all the light samples at 32 and you know, actually that's the first time I've ever used 32 samples on my lights. I usually just use 16, but I cranked those up, and I was real happy with the noise. But the cool thing was, after I got it rendered, I loaded the rendered image back into Lightwave as my background, and I just ran it through the GPU denoiser. Now, why did I do that? Well, I tested it in, I have several denoise applications. I tested those. I loaded it up in Blender and, ran it through the denoiser there. But decent results, but the Lightwave GPU denoiser really gave me the best results out of all the denoisers that I have at my disposal. So, I ran it through and denoised everything in Lightwave's denoiser. And of course, when you do a denoiser, a lot of times details get lost. Well, I lost the details on the threads here on this particular piece and this piece. But everything else was just really, really nicely done. So, and this is half size. This isn't the 6K image. So basically then I just used some of those buffers to, mask this stuff out. And when it also blurred the football up really bad. So I masked this, and the football, and that's as is coming out of the render. Okay. Now you get some herringbone in here, but it's fabric, so it's not that big of a deal. So anyway, essentially that was the process to getting these images done and rendered in, in a timely fashion. I didn't think, 2 hours in the scheme of things is pretty ridiculous, but in my situation, it was fine. Got 2 computers. I can render on one, use the other to do, my day-to-day activities or whatever. So got the project done, saved it out in 3 different formats for them, TIFF, JPEG, and PNG. Did a little bit of post work in Affinity Photo and whatnot, not much, but they were tickled pink. Sure beats, what they have here. So they were pleased, especially considering, the turnaround time. But as when that was over, I thought, let's experiment a little bit more with some of this stuff. And I recall when 2020 came out, there was this YouTube video posted by Auntie about the Irradiance cache. And I remember when 2020 came out, I played with the Irradiance cache, and man, just did not find anything that it, to me, it just didn't seem to work and wasn't very fast. I thought the 2019 implementation with interpolated GI was actually a better implementation, but so basically didn't really touch it. But I thought I need to look at it again, uh, to see if it could help, in similar projects going forward. So I watched the video, and then I found the scene here that had the Irradiance cache set up and all that, and I did some test renders, and wow, it really cleans things up, splotchies, not a problem. Did a good job, seemed fairly quick, for what it was. So then I thought, well, I'm going to run some tests using these settings, which I think are just standard settings anytime you go from brute force to Irradiance cache. This is kind of what it gets. That's what was in his movie here. And maybe it was this movie here. But anyway, so I did some tests on that scene, this scene here, and everything seemed pretty cool. So I did some tests on my scene, real world situation, and so here they are. Here's some of the tests. Now, for the tests, I didn't want to do, full 2048 by 2048. So I ran these. These were 372, I believe, or what is it in here? Divide by 2. Yeah, 3072. And then I divided it again. So yeah, they were 1536 by 1536. That's what these were. So here was the first one I did, which was 31 minutes and 43 seconds. 31 minutes and 43 seconds with one camera sample and no adaptive samples. Okay, and if we go 100%, okay, not too bad. This isn't good. These obviously aren't good. I would have to crank, the resolution up to, clean some of this up. The noise is pretty decent, but, still fairly noisy. Of course, this needs the AA big time. These lines across here. So then on my next test, I added one camera sample with 8 adaptive samples, and it was 1 hour, it was 2 hours. So yeah, it cleaned up real nice, and you still get herringbone in through here, just not enough resolution for that. But 2 hours in my previous work that I just shared with you, 6K, that took 2 hours. So there was no gain, in my opinion, here. So that's kind of a so I thought, well, let's try no adaptive samples and 2 camera samples, and that did a pretty nice job. Here I'm at 200%. You still need some AA here. Let's go down to 100. There's still anti-aliasing here that needs to be worked on, but overall it wasn't bad. And they probably would have been okay with something like this, even the previous one. So then my next step was to do, what was it here? Oh, I think I upped it. Yeah, I upped the resolution on this to 2048 by 2048 with 2 camera samples. and no adaptive sampling. So that helped, you know, with the AA on these lines here, and it helped a little bit with the moire patterns and whatnot in the fabric. And it's fairly clean, as you know. I would still probably run it through some kind of a noise cleaner to clean it up, but it wasn't too bad. Uh, so anyway, then I thought, well, okay, uh, let me run this original scene back, at the regular uh, resolution with Irradiance cache and the secondary GI with Irradiance cache. Let's see what that can do. Maybe miracles, that can really clean things up. Won't need to do uh, any of the cleanup with any denoise or anything like that. Uh, because actually my experience with doing limited region rendering, it does do a very good job of cleaning things up, and it get a pretty noise free render. Uh, so I hit the render button and just kind of let it go. Well, as you can see, I stopped the rendering at 11 hours and 14 minutes, and this was the second pass, the second pre-process pass. The first one took 1 hour and 52 minutes. Now it's working on the second one. You can see right here where, it's working through this, right? You can see how it's just a little bit lighter than this area over here. So, it hasn't calculated the time remaining, but we all know that that's pretty meaningless until the frame gets to be about 30, 40, 50% done. But, at 11 hours, 14 minutes already, what's the point? I mean, so yeah, I killed it. So, yeah, so part of my question is why? Why does this Irradiance cache exist when it doesn't really seem to work? Uh, and again, the results on a smaller image looked very positive. It looked like it would, really do the trick. And if you can bake out some of that stuff and get some animations in, fine. I don't really do any animations, so that's really no interest to me. Uh, so the baking aspect of it, I don't really want to mess around with that. Don't need to. And I'm sure subsequent renders probably would be better. But I'm doing one shot, one image. Uh, so yeah, that's overall the project turned out well. I was happy with the way things turned out, and you know obviously the customers have. I actually provided them with two images. Uh, I had enough time based on the work, so I gave them two images, and they're going to use them both. Uh, but so yeah, in a nutshell, that's some of the process that I use to get some of this stuff done. But it's also a big question as to why doesn't this stuff, why isn't it faster? Why doesn't the Irradiance cache really help? Brute force. I mean, I just go back to my tests that I did when 2023 first came out. Irradiance cache just does not seem to really help or do any good in any of my tests. And some of this stuff here that I did over the last couple of days kind of confirmed that what's the point? Uh, so it might be the latest technology. Well, okay, it may be, but the results don't seem to be there. Uh, and then the whole AA thing in general. it seems to me like if you go back to doing the old school way of doing things, where back in the day, we would render at a super high resolution, way bigger than what we needed, with very low settings in your camera samples AA, and scale it down. And as you can see in these shots here, if I go at 100%, it's pretty darn clean. And AA is really not a concern. Let me go to the one where we have an angle and where AA can really kind of come into play. So 100%. Yeah, I'm I'm very happy with that. And that was one camera sample. Uh, Again, now this is half size of the original render size at 3072, 3072 pixels. But overall, I'm really pleased with the results of that. Football didn't come out the greatest, but hey, they were happy. So I guess in the end is, if your client's happy, you can be happy. Uh, but I would like to see in future versions of Lightwave that you know we need to speed up this render engine. It's really a good looking render engine. It does really good work. I mean, there's hardly any post work in this. I mean, it's pretty much uh, right out of the render engine. I add a little background here in Affinity Photo, and did some curve adjustments, and basically that's about it. So very little post work, and again, if your client is happy, uh, you know, that's all you can ask for, right? So I don't know if this has helped anybody, or if somebody would like to comment and help me. That'd be much appreciated. Why is it the way it is? Why is the IC Irradiance cache the way it is? Why doesn't it really seem to work that well? Why does it seem to slow things down to a crawl? I think in theory it seems like a great thing, but in reality it appears to not be of much use. Uh, so anyway, that's kind of my rant and kind of a backstory to my project, and hopefully in the future, we'll see a new image put in here on their website. So thanks for listening, and any comments would be appreciated as to uh, what I've shown, and what can be done to, in the future, get Lightwave's render engine up to speed. Thanks so much.